Well, hello everyone out there in these podcasting streets, and welcome to Black by Color Only, a division of True Sharks Radio Network. Hope today finds you doing well. I'm your host and friend, the Sand Tiger, DJ Southeast Vince, coming at you from a place called Durham, North Carolina. This show will discuss topics that affect the so-called Black nation, whatever that is, and if you happen to be a fruit bat, beware, because this shark is in the water. How you folks doing? Hope you all had a good week and whatever. Of course, we all are caught up in the celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. on Monday, and those of you all who listen to this show or have listened to it when I was from my blog talk radio days, you all know that I do not view Martin Luther King Jr. as a hero. Growing up, I remember in the sixth grade back in 1980, it was the first time they started putting the Black History Month on us and everything. And, I was like, oh gosh, we got to deal with this. And I was never a big proponent of Martin Luther King Jr. or Black History Month. I mean, the history is interesting. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying you shouldn't learn about these Black figureheads that influenced our history. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying I don't see why we need a month. I'm a wax Morgan Freeman here, but I don't understand why we need a month to celebrate that, because what we call Black history is a part of all history, general history. You can't history is not something that you can just separate from the whole and just say, okay, well, this is Black history and this is white history and this is this history and that history and that history and everything. But people have this thing that, we celebrate Black history because for so many years we've been celebrating white history. And I always thought it was just history. Because even when we celebrated history, when we would talk about history, we would talk about these things that, the Black proponents in our history, we would talk about them even before they started forcing Black History Month on us. So when they say, oh, we've been studying white history, no, we haven't. Okay. I was well aware of Martin Luther King and some of these others, George Washington Carver and all that, before Black History Month was pushed on us. So you can miss me with that one. But everyone's looking forward to it. Now, I'm not a person who doesn't view Martin Luther King Jr. as a hero because of his supposed sexual escapades. I don't know where to go on that because I don't have any proof, so to speak. I hear it. I hear the allegations a lot. I heard the testimony by Ralph Abernathy, who was one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s closest friends, and I don't know where to go with that. Um, if it is true, I can say, Martin Luther King, you dirty dog, but that's not the reason why that Martin Luther King Jr. is not viewed as a hero. The reason why he's not viewed as a hero with me is because, Martin Luther King was known as a preacher, as a Baptist preacher, but I never heard him preach on the saving grace of Jesus Christ. And there were statements that were made. There's a documentation that shows that he did not believe in the Trinity or the virgin birth or anything like that. And I've never heard the man speak on the saving grace of Jesus. Never. If he has preached on the saving grace of Jesus Christ, it's somewhere hidden in someone's basement somewhere, and it's dusting. It's dusting somewhere, because I've never heard. And that's the thing I have to say about most of these civil rights heroes, so to speak. I never hear them talking about the saving grace of Jesus Christ. Never. They're always preaching civil rights and, victimhood and things like this. And, we deserve, equal rights and everything. And basically what he pushed was so that, you know, white people so that we can sit with white people, a bunch of, certain people that didn't like us. I'm not saying all white people didn't like us. So don't mince my words on that. But basically what Martin Luther King was doing, he was trying to get the government to get a bunch of people who did not like us. He was trying to get them to accept us. And I'm like, that's not the way we should go at it. If you don't like me, then I don't want to force you to like me. Like if I go to a restaurant and you say, "Hey, we don't allow your kind up in here," I'm not going to go to the government and say, "Well, okay, well, government, this person, he's got a restaurant and he doesn't allow black people into his restaurant." Then the government comes in, "Oh, he doesn't do, does he?" And next thing you know, they come in with their rules and their laws and everything, and then they force this person to serve you. If you don't want to serve me, I don't want to force you to do it to serve me. I just don't, because I don't know if I'm in a restaurant, I don't know if I really want to eat that food. That's how I see it. You don't need to, and so people are, "Oh, Martin Luther King, Martin Luther King." Most of us do not know Martin Luther King. We don't know what his likes were, his dislikes. We don't know what his favorite food was. We don't know anything about Martin Luther King. All we know about him is what we've seen on news footage. That's all we know about him. And I know there's going to be a bunch of people to say certain things about me, and this man's a coon, and he's trying to he's trying to coon hard, and he's an Uncle Tom, and all he wants to do is kiss the white man's tail and all that crazy mess. The gaslighting, the people who graduated from Gaslight U, they'll say all this stuff. "Oh, he doesn't like being black and all this and yada yada yada." I've been hearing this for decades, people. I've been hearing this for decades. But if you want to celebrate the legacy, if you can call it that, of Martin Luther King Jr., you go right ahead. It's your freedom to do so. But don't look at me because I'm a black man that I should be celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. If you want to celebrate it, that's fine. But don't look at me all cross-eyed because I don't celebrate it. But anyway, um, I want to talk right now. I want to talk about one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s one of his future proponents, a result of his legacy. And those of you who know me know I do not celebrate the accomplishments of black folks, especially in this day and age, because it's like, okay, we've proven that we are able to rock it just like the white people can. We've already proven that decades ago. Matter of fact, before I was born. I was born in 1968. And so, people want to get up here and they always want to push this in people's faces. "Oh, this is the first black person to do this. This is the first black woman to do this. This is the first black man to do this. This. And I'm like, so what? Okay. We me, I'm like, okay, I think they got it. Okay. You're black. Okay. Big whoop. But it always gets pushed in our faces like, you white people, y'all kept us down for centuries. They say 400 years, and this year we'll be celebrating the U.S.'s 250th birthday. So I don't know where they get this 400 years from. They keep pushing this stuff in our face, and every year about this time, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, Black History Month, they want to keep pushing this stuff in our face. They want to rub our faces in the dirt about it. Okay, so you can get it. Okay, we got it. We got it. Okay. And it's something I've grown very weary of because and as a black man, it really bothers me. Excuse me. It really bothers me as a black man because they really look at people like me and say, oh, you're black. You should really celebrate the accomplishments of your fellow black people. Well, people, let me tell you all something. These same black people that are always pushing blackness, blackness, blackness and everything. They always talking about victimhood and the white man holding us down. These are the very same people who will talk about their fellow black people because of their nappy hair and because of their big dark lips and because of the way they walk and because of the way their voices sound. So I really don't want to hear it about I need to celebrate black culture because I do not like black culture. I'm just going to let you know that right now. The black culture that you see today that's being pushed forth on other black people, I don't care much for it because I don't like what I see. And then, once again, they'll go and say, you really don't like being black and, you grew up in a privileged life and that's why you think like this. It's like they think they know you better than you know yourself. And when you try to explain something to them, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it because they already got you figured out. I was watching a video with who was that? Corey Holcomb and the other guy, Anton Daniels, the other day. And oh my goodness, that video was intense. These two dudes almost came to blows. And Corey Holcomb made a disparaging mark about Anton Daniels. Corey Holcomb I think he's a comedian. I'm not too familiar with him, but I know about Anton Daniels. And I like a lot of Anton Daniels material. The only thing I like about Anton Daniels is he has a filthy mouth. But the other day they had a little debate going on and whatever, and Corey Holcomb made a disparaging remark about Anton Daniels. I'm not going to play it or anything like that because it's too much slinging of the bad language in that video. I don't want to play it here. But Corey Holcomb made a disparaging remark about Anton Daniels, and Anton Daniels met him with the same energy, so to speak. And when I say that, I mean Anton Daniels said a disparaging mark about Corey Holcomb. Corey Holcomb gets into his feelings and he wants to fight Anton Daniels saying, oh, you disrespected me. Dude, you're the one that initiated the conflict. You're the one that made a disparaging remark about Anton Daniels, but when he meets you with that same energy, all of a sudden you're disrespected. Dude, the door of respect swings both ways. And I'm sitting here and they getting in each other's face. I mean, it almost came to blows. They had moderators or whatever at Corey Holcomb's studio. He was like, nah, you don't talk about me like that. And I'm sitting there like, dude, you were the one that said something disparaging about him first. And this is the classic, you can dish it out, but you can't take it type of scenario. And and it doesn't surprise me because the apostles of blackness, They think it is okay for them to disrespect you, but you better not meet them with that same type of disrespect. They can sit there and say you're kissing up to the white man and everything, but when you meet them with that same energy, all of a sudden they want to fight you. Nah, dude, you want to disrespect me? Don't be surprised at the disrespect that comes back at you. And I get this so many times when I tell my fellow black people that when I show them I have a view that is not equal to theirs, and they'll get up in their feelings and they take it personal, like you insulted them and whatever, and then you got them. You definitely know you got them when they start the gaslighting, when they start the insults and the ad hominems and the character assassinations. And then when you meet them with the same energy they meet you with, they want to fight you. I've gone through this for decades. They want to get up in your face. They want to disrespect you, but don't you disrespect them. And this is something that is very it runs like the plague among black folks. It really does. But it runs like the plague among liberals in the first place. But black folks, because some of us got that little gang culture in us and everything. We're proponents of modern day black culture, and so that's why we get in our feelings all the time. But I was watching that, I said, man, will you look at this? Now, Anton Daniels, the only thing he did wrong was making that disparaging remark to Corey Holcomb. But he was meeting Corey Holcomb with the same energy that Corey dished out at him. I've been on other people's shows and folks, let me tell you all something. Back in the day when I first started this, I may have been naive, but now if I go to someone's program, I already know what to expect. And I just say, I'll just go here for the heck of it. And sure enough, about 4 years ago, well, 3.5 years ago, I was on another person's program. He invited me there to explain, my show and things like that. And I'm going to be honest with you, he was very respectful while I was there. But then I tuned into his show the next week, and he was saying all these disparaging remarks about me, and I said, "Yeah, see, it's nothing. It's par for the course. I expected it." And so when I talked about it on my next show, he gets up and starts saying that I betrayed him and that I said derogatory comments about him. I said, "No, dude, I'm just repeating what you said about me. I'm just repeating what you said about me." And then, he had certain people, yeah, he was very respectful to you. He was very respectful. I said, yeah, he was. He was. But it's when we went behind my back and started saying disparaging comments about me. And I said, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I'm not intimidated by these rascals. They think you're intimidated. I'm not intimidated. And they'll say, oh, you're thin skinned. No. Really, you want to throw that thin skin accusation against somebody, you need to look at yourself in the mirror. Instead of saying, hey, I don't agree with you, and I guess we'll agree to disagree. No, you got to go behind my back and call me what do you call me, a black comfort dog for white conservatives? And I told it to my wife. I told it to a friend of mine. They said that sounds like an insult. I said, yeah, that's what it is. But see, they don't see it as an insult. They see it as intellectual discourse, I guess. They think they're very intelligent when they throw these insults at you, and then when you point it out, oh, I'm not insulting you. You need to stop being so thin-skinned. It's nothing to do with me being thin-skinned. You're just being disrespectful. Now, if I was disrespectful back to you, now you'll feel some way about it. And so this dude, he felt like I was disrespecting him by telling. All I did was repeat what he said. That's all I did. I didn't insult him or anything. All I did was repeat what he said. And he said I betrayed him. I betrayed you? Dude, first of all, we're not friends. But these are the tactics that they use. They'll sit there, they will insult you. But if you insult them back, oh, you're disrespecting me. No, You, that's a self-righteous, narcissistic type of attitude. I can disrespect you, but don't you dare disrespect me. Like, dude, I'm like, well then why are we having a conversation? And this dude, he went to other people's sites, and he was antagonizing them, and he got reported to Blog Talk Radio, and Blog Talk Radio kicked him off. They kicked him off, so but and that I didn't want him to get kicked off. I don't care how disrespectful you are or anything like that. I don't want you to get kicked off. Now I will block you if I feel like I have to, but I don't think you should have gotten. I really didn't want him to get kicked off of Blog Talk Radio, but the rules were the rules, and so he got kicked off. But anyway, let me go back to what my original thought was. I kind of deviate from what I was talking about, but I wanted to talk about someone who is a modern day descendant of the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. Here past decade or so, we've had we've been trying to ramp up, these black people who make these certain accomplishments and whatever, and you don't really have to be black. You just have to be a darker skinned person. You don't have to be white. Um, Back when the election was stolen from Donald Trump, and yes, you can quote me on that. I will say it till I die. That the election in 2020 was stolen from Donald Trump. But that's neither here nor there. He's in the office right now. But when Joe Biden was when he was running for president, and he announced who his vice president was going to be, he told us before he named who that person was that it was going to be a black woman. Now, y'all want to talk about me kissing white tail, and Joe Biden was kissing black tail. But really, it wasn't black tail. It was false black tail, because the person he chose, Kamala Harris, is not a black woman. But she thinks because she went to Howard University, she was a member of AKA, and all that, she was like, I'm down with the cause. The woman got up here and she started talking about when she was a girl and they used to celebrate Kwanzaa, and Kwanzaa, she was still a little girl when Kwanzaa was founded. You know, she talked about the school she went to. It went through its second desegregation. It had already been desegregated before she got there. Oh, excuse me. Hey, Pookie. That's my cat. She startled me. But anyway, the school she went to was already desegregated, and she was, she was trying to, amp up some browning points with the black brothers and sisters, even though she wasn't a black brother or a sister. And of course, she became the first female vice president, female of color, and she wrote on that. And when she wanted to ride that thing like I'm one of the sisters and everything, but she's not. She won't tell you that back in the day, one of her ancestors used to own slaves in Jamaica, a place called Brownville. She won't tell you that. But there was a person that when Joe Brown got into office, he nominated this person to be a Supreme Court justice. And this person was Ketanji Brown Jackson. And of course, Joe Biden, he was like, yeah, I'm going to nominate. Girl, get down. But you want some attention? He said, I'm going to nominate a black woman to be the next Supreme Court justice. And liberal black America celebrated. They were like, oh my goodness. Oh, we're going to have a black woman on the Supreme Court. Now, one thing I understand about, people announcing a black person going to be in this certain position. Me, I don't celebrate. Because just because that person is black doesn't mean they're going to be a competent candidate for that position. When I was on Blog Talk Radio, I used to share this all the time. When I was in 10th grade back in 1984, and Ronald Reagan was going up for re-election, and Jesse Jackson threw his hat into the ring, and I was in a literature class, and why are you looking at me like that? I was in a literature class, and our literature teacher he held a mock election, and he wanted to know how we would vote. If we, because we weren't old enough to vote at that time, and most of the people in this class were black, myself included, and I already knew how most of my black classmates would vote. They're gonna vote for Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson. I ain't know the thing first about no Jesse Jackson. Be honest with you, I ain't know the thing first about anybody. But I told myself, I said, I know folks are gonna think I should vote for Jesse Jackson because he's black. That's it. He's black. He's a black guy. And I said, I'm not gonna vote for Jesse Jackson because he's black. And the reason why I didn't vote for him was because I was like, yeah, he might be black, but I want to know what he stands for. I'm not just going to vote for you because you're black. And I knew this back in 1984. I didn't know the difference between no Republican or Democrat back then. The only thing I knew about the Democrats and Republicans, Democrats liked black people, Republicans didn't. I didn't care. I was like, if you're going to run for something, you have to show what you are standing for. But I knew a lot of people were going to vote for Jesse Jackson because he was black. And sure enough, most of the people in the classroom, they said, yeah, we're voting for Jesse Jackson. And one of my classmates, he was like, well, I know who won the election in this room. He may not have won anywhere else, but he won in this room. And me, I took a stand, and I think maybe two more black people in that class took a stand. And, people were like, why are you voting for? Because me, I thought Mondale would have been good, which, that tells you how much I knew about politics back then. Because I wanted anybody but Ronald Reagan, because, we were told that Ronald Reagan is evil and, he's making the rich richer and the poor poorer, but they don't tell you how he's doing that. But anyway, fast forward to nearly 40 years later, and a certain person was nominated to the Supreme Court by Joe Biden. This person was nominated on February 25th, 2022. And her name is Ketanji Brown Jackson. And everybody was singing the praises. Oh, we got a black woman on the Supreme Court, just like they did with Sotomayor not too long previously. Sotomayor, she was the first Hispanic. She was the first Hispanic nominated to the Supreme Court. And now, we got another woman on the Supreme Court. Oh, yeah. Oh, hallelujah. Let's shout it from the mountaintops. Yeah, all right. But once again, people are celebrating because she's a black woman. They didn't know anything about her. They didn't know anything about Ketanji Brown Jackson. They just knew she was a black woman, and they were throwing their support behind her simply because she was a black woman. And when they found out she wasn't a conservative, that she was nominated by Joe Biden, it was, we got our support behind her. Maybe she'll act as a buffer against Justice Clarence Thomas, But from what I gather within the past about almost 4 years now, is that there's a lesson to be learned here. You know how certain people, they'll go to school, they'll work hard, they'll get their degrees and their MBAs and whatever, their master's degrees, their PhDs and everything, and they think they are so accomplished because they got a PhD and I'm an accomplished person because I got this and everything. That's what people think about Justice Sotomayor or Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Excuse me. Here's a problem I have with that. Just because you have a degree from a highly accredited college or anything like that, that doesn't mean that you're smart. It just means you turned your homework in on time and you pass all the tests. That's all it means. And I'm starting to see that Ketanji Brown Jackson is a straight up ditz. Let me I probably should have pulled this up. I don't know why I wasn't ready for the show today. I was ready last week, but now, and then I got this cat over here. Hey, Pookie. Let me get here. Okay, here we go. Ketanji Brown Jackson. Okay, when she was first nominated to the Supreme Court, someone asked her a question about what is a woman. Now, now keep in mind, people are celebrating her as the first black woman to get a seat on the U.S. Supreme Court, the court of the land. And when they asked her this question, this is the answer she came up with.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a biologist.
The meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
Senator, in my work as a judge, what I do is I address disputes. If there's a dispute about a definition, people make arguments, and I look at the law and I decide. Well, so I'm not.
The fact that you can't give me a straight answer about something as fundamental as what a woman is underscores the dangers of the kind of progressive education that we are hearing about.
Now, keep in mind, Keep in mind, people celebrated her. People celebrated her as the first black woman to make it to the Supreme Court. Someone asked her, what is a woman? And basically, and I'm not going to say it verbatim, she was basically saying, well, I'm not a biologist, so I don't know what a woman is. But you are celebrated as a black woman on the Supreme Court. Now, this is another problem, too, because we've gotten to the point where we think if we're not an expert in a certain field of study, that we cannot really tell you what is what. Like, if you're not a biologist, you can't talk about, cell division or something like that. You're not well, I get this a lot because I'm a born again Christian. I do not believe in evolution. And I've had people say, well, I want to see your peer reviewed papers about evolution. And even if I had a peer reviewed paper about evolution, you still wouldn't take it to heart. You still wouldn't listen to it, because you're set in your ways. You don't need to be an expert in a field of study to know about that field of study, like, biology. Everybody knows what a man, everybody knows what a woman is. And that's what her interrogator was telling her. This is a basic fundamental, this is something you should know. And how in the world someone like Ketanji Brown Jackson ended up on the Supreme Court is crazy to me. Something as simple as, do you know what a woman is? And she's like, well, I don't know. But you know what? Collective liberal black America, they didn't sit back and say, dang, she don't know what a woman is. They still celebrate her because she's a black queen. She's a liberal queen. And I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. And anybody knows what a woman is. A woman is a human adult female. Just like a man. What's a man? A human adult male. Simple. That's fundamental. And even if you can't, come up with a good definition or whatever, you can point to a person and say, that's a man. Or that's a woman. But see, we've allowed the liberals to muddy the waters so much that in this day and age, we don't know what a man or a woman is. We say there are 72 different genders. 72 different genders. I don't know how in the world someone came up with 72 different genders. And here's the thing that they say. When you are born, you are assigned a gender at birth. But here's the thing. You're not assigned one of 72 genders. You're assigned one of two. And not only that, and I don't like using that word assigned. You all give me a second. Anyway, my wife is trying to call me. She's on her job. Um, you're not assigned a gender. I hear a lot of people saying that, oh, this was my gender. This was the gender that was assigned to me. The doctors or the people who deliver you or whatever, they don't give out genders. Give me a second. Give me a second again. All right, folks. My wife is, But anyway, let me get back to this gender assigning thing. People keep saying, oh, the doctors don't have a gender, and they say, this is a person coming out, and let's see, I got some, oh, I don't have enough male tickets, so I'll consider this person to be a female. I don't have enough female tickets, so I'll consider this person to be a male. You are not assigned your gender at birth. Your gender is assigned by your genetic makeup. Now, these people always want to talk about science, 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 science. And they don't even use science to make their points. There are certain distinguishing features when you are born. They say, okay, this is a little girl. Okay, this is a little boy. You are not assigned anything. And so we've allowed the liberal we've allowed the intellectualism of the liberals to muddy the waters to the point where your typical person doesn't even know what a man or a woman is now. Well, most of us do, but it's a certain amount of people in this country, they don't know what a man or a woman is. And then and with all that muddying of the waters, now people are saying, oh, men can get pregnant. No, men cannot get pregnant. Only women can get pregnant. And oh my goodness, these people will fight you. They will get in your face. What do you mean? Men can get pregnant. No, they cannot. A 5-year-old even knows that. They will get in your face and, oh, you just hating and you're racist and all this. Rah, 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 rah. And I'm like, y'all got to be kidding me. Oh my goodness. Someone passed me the Tylenol. My goodness. And this is the type of atmosphere that Ketanji Brown Jackson grew up in. She's a little more than a year younger than I am. She was born in 1970. I was born in 1968. And we grew up in this mess, in this garbage. We go to these government schools and they teach you what they want you to know. Not what is they don't want to teach you the truth. They want to teach you what they want you to learn. So you can when you graduate from high school and you go to Harvard or any of these other schools, you'll be perfect little robots to push their agenda. And those who want to push the truth are the ones who are seen as a threat. But you all get up here and it amazes me. And the thing that really gets me are folks who are supposed to be followers of Christ. Christian folks getting caught up in this garbage. They do the same thing. You all know I talk about Jamal Bryant quite often. And in his church, he talks about, we want to support a woman's right to choose and LGBTQ and all the things. He says he's a preacher of the word of God, but he's not preaching the word, because if he would go into the word, a lot of things he supports, he would see that the word stands against. Homosexuality is a sin. Murdering a child before he or she has a chance to live outside the womb is a sin. It's called murder. And so many of us have been conditioned to think, oh, it's a woman's right to choose. It's her body. But I didn't hear them saying that during COVID when people were trying to keep from getting those vaccinations. Of course, that just flew out. That rhetoric just flew out the window when COVID came around. Oh, no, nah, it ain't your. Nah, we say what's your body and your choice. Once again, we let the government tell us, we let the government, the liberal-minded government, dictate to us who we are, what we should do. It's called communism. But this is the type of atmosphere that Ketanji Brown Jackson grew up in. And I believe this started with the baby boomers. Because I've had some contentions with my own with my own mother about abortion, and she was, oh well, if these girls are not allowed to have abortion, a lot of these kids, they're gonna grow up and they're gonna be poor and they're gonna live in poverty and everything. But you got a lot of kids living in poverty right now. Ask them, do they want to be alive? I guarantee you most of them will say yes. I guarantee you 99% of children who are alive today, poor children, dirt poor children, they are glad to be alive. Oh, but these kids are going to grow up in poverty. So, okay, since they're going to grow up in poverty, and chances are they probably will, because of a lot of these kids, they have their parents aren't married. But that's no reason to kill the child. Oh, okay, you're going to grow up in poverty, so let's kill you. You're going to be a burden on the government. So let's just go ahead and kill you. But then these are the same people. These are the same people that talk about how compassionate and tolerant they are. And all you have to do is look at the evening news, the liberal evening news. Even them. All you have to do is look at the evening news, use a little common sense when you watch it, and you will see who the intolerant and violent people really are. And it's not the conservatives. Hate to break your bubble about that, but it is not the conservatives. But let me go on to something else that Ketanji Brown Jackson, this woman is dumber than a pile of rocks. If you had 1,000 boulders all gathered in one place, I don't think this woman will still have enough brain power to rival that pile of boulders. Because this woman, and people, they don't say any, she let me pull this other one up, because this has to do with something she said about transgenders lately. Let me pull this up.
Justice Jackson. So I guess I'm trying to puzzle through whether or not there is some independent form of discrimination against transgender women that is distinct from the sex separation that Title IX.
Now, when you hear the word transgender, just translate transgender to fake, and you'll get what's really being said. Like, if you hear transgendered woman, you will hear a fake woman, which means the transgendered woman is not a woman. The transgendered woman is a man. Same thing with, transgender female or transgendered man. Transgendered man is really a female. So let me continue on.
Allows. So I appreciate that your argument is that because the regulations permit sex separation, and that hasn't been challenged, that should be the end of this inquiry, basically. And I think you get there because you say
you're sort of picking up on this idea that maybe this is just about a definition of who is a male or a woman. Is that right?
I think to some degree, but it's also, Your Honor, it's just because we're indifferent to a person's gender identity and applying the law.
But the law actually operates differently, I think, for cisgender women and transgender women. That is, with respect to their desire to play on a team that matches their gender identity, cisgender women can do it, transgender women cannot. And so we do appreciate a distinction, I think, that is being drawn on the basis of your gender status, gender identity status, trans or cis, right?
So, and I want to make sure I understand if we're operating in Title IX world or equal protection world, because I think it might make a difference to the answer. But
okay, let's start with Title IX.
So Title IX, I think the question of, I look at this statute and see a distinction between boy and girl indifferent to gender identity. And I think that...
Right, but I'm testing that proposition, right? You see that distinction, and I see it too on the separation of teams level at the beginning.
Right, and I think what I'm hearing is that distinction arises from a difference in effect, and I don't see a disparate impact analysis that's sort of hidden away in Title IX.
But why is that a difference in effect? So it's like a second order discrimination, right? The first order is separating male from female.
Right.
The second order is separating transgender women from cisgender women, right?
Respectfully, I would disagree.
No.
The reason why is just because I think anytime you have a classification, you could divide it into subclassifications, and I don't think that then becomes like the law in the same way applies to brown-haired biological girls and blonde-headed biological girls.
I understand, but I don't think you can get... I'm not sure, and maybe this is switching to the equal protection. I don't think you can get out of the implications of making a classification by setting it up as a definition, as a subclass. And so we've already okayed the classification because it's really all about classification. You can't distinguish in that way, right?
Well, I think what the court said on the equal protection side is you look at the facial classification, and I think here it's effectively unconceded that the facial classification is between boy and girl. And I think at that point, if maybe you have a situation where you think that the classification is somehow a proxy for some sort of secret secondary classification, but I don't.
No, but the definition implicates another division. So here's an example. So suppose that we have Title IX exempting, and I think it does this, certain religious institutions from its requirements. And let's say Title IX then went on to define, this is in my hypothetical, religious institutions to include only those institutions that proselytize. Is that a classification problem or a definition problem? I would say it would be a classification problem, and you'd still have to apply all of the heightened scrutiny just because, they're defining religious institutions in a certain way. Similarly here, you have the overarching classification, everybody has to be...
Here's the frustrating thing about all this, and basically what she's saying is, if you are a transgendered female, you should fall under Title IX, which Title IX gave all these provisions for female sports players. If I'm saying that right. It defined what, female sports players could play under or whatever and things like that. But it was to be separate from the men. Now, what she's doing, she's going into a Kamala Harris type of word salad here. That's basically what she's doing. Going into a Kamala Harris style word salad. I don't know. I don't know if she has a bottle of Thousand Island or Italian dressing in her purse under her podium or anything like that. But I digress. But that's what she's doing. She's going. Folks, why do we have to complicate things of this matter? If you are born a biological male, you are not assigned that. You are born a male. Why do we have to complicate it and make it so we can have all these provisions so you can get to play with the girls? Because let me tell you all something. Isn't it strange that you got a lot of boys wanting to play with the girls, but you're not seeing too many girls wanting to play with the boys. Ask yourself that. Basically, what you got a bunch of sissy men. I'm not going to be nice. You got a bunch of sissy men who are not that athletic and whatever. And just because you're not athletic and you're a man doesn't mean you're a sissy. But if you consider yourself to have female characteristics and you're a man, yeah, you're a sissy. But you don't have a lot of athleticism. And you say, man, I can't beat these boys. I can't beat my peers and everything. Well, why don't I pretend I'm a girl and go play with the girls? And see, now we've opened that up. We said, if you're a man and you think you're a girl, well, then we'll call you a girl. No, you're a man. Physically, men are stronger than women are. There are a few exceptions, but 99 and 999 1,000% of the time, the man is going to win. Serena Williams made this distinction one time when someone asked her, did she want to play against men? She was like, nah. She said, the worst man in the world could beat me. She was like, nah, I don't want to do it. So why in the world, why in the Sam Hill do we have these men, biological men, competing against these girls? It's not fair. And once again, the liberal mindset says we're the fair ones. We believe in treating all people with fairness. Well, allowing a boy to race against girls on the swim team or the track team or the wrestling team or whatever is not being fair. And I forgot who this boy was. He was racing against these girls up in, I think it was Connecticut. And he won every single time. Why? Because he's a man. He is not a girl. Now, if you still want to play sports, why don't you say, hey, why don't we come up with a transgender league instead of running with the girls? Because I can guarantee you every trophy that you win when you compete against the girls is a trophy that has not been earned. Because men have different musculature. They have different build. They are typically stronger than girls. But because the liberal mindset has muddied the waters in America today, we don't know what to think. We say, oh yeah, let her. Oh, you think you're a girl? Okay, you're a girl. Okay, you can go with the girls. No. And then you had certain girls around the country. They were like, nah, I'm not going to compete against him. He's a man. He's a boy. He's going to beat us every time. And now you got lawsuits going around and everything, stuff like that. Certain people have come to their senses and they've taken away the awards these men have won. I forgot the name of that swimmer. That swimmer was beating all the girls. And whenever he would put on a woman's swimsuit, you could see his junk down there. Like, he shouldn't be. No, he should not be competing with the girls. People, if you are a male and you think you got a girl living inside of you, that is a red flag for mental illness. And so we want to come up here and we want to mess up the language and dictate the narrative and make it like, oh, we got to change the definition and everything so that, you know, these men who think they're girls, they can feel accepted. No, you should not be accepted. You need to go somewhere and locked up in a padded room until you come to your senses and realize, hey, wait a minute, I'm a man. Same thing if you one of the things I do not like these boyish girls out here. You can tell them, yo, what's up? Wait a minute. The heck? You're a girl? And you talking like that? Yeah, what you talking about? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. But we all let this go. We let it go. And then when someone does speak out against it, we're called hateful. That's hate speech. No, it's not hate speech. We're telling the truth. But see, that's the problem with the liberals. Anything that's the truth is hate speech to them. But this is Ketanji Brown Jackson drank from the filthy, muddy waters of modern liberal rhetoric, and that's why she talks the way she does. This woman is as dense as a ton of lead. How in the world we let people like this get into positions of government is beyond me. And she basically, she's like a canary in the coal mine that lets you know how stupid people have really gotten. Because if she can think like this, think about the people who support her. They probably think the same way. Well, no, I don't think like that. I believe the boys should be with boys and girls should be with girls. So why do you keep voting for these type of people? Now, of course, Ketanji Brown Jackson is in an unelected position. The only people who can nominate her is the president. But you keep electing these people. You keep saying, okay, well, I believe boys should be with boys and girls should be with girls. But then when you go to the voting booth, you're voting for these people who believe that biological boys can compete against biological girls. You vote for these same people that'll tell you that if you think you are a girl, you can go into the girls' locker room. You can go into the girls' bathroom. So a connection has been snipped somewhere. And like I said, the thing that really bothers me the most about this are people who call themselves men and women of God who get up here and they support this mess. Won't even take a stand. We're supposed to be the light of the world. We're supposed to be shining in a dark place. But what do? We allow the darkness to snuff out our candles. No. If you are a biological male, I don't care if you think you are a girl, you don't need to be competing against the girls. And a lot of these girls out here who should have gotten trophies for certain accomplishments and whatever, they've had it stolen by a bunch of wackerdoodles with mental illness. And Ketanji Brown Jackson, she doesn't see anything wrong with that. She doesn't see anything wrong with it. And then they'll go off into this filibuster or whatever and this word salad. It's not a complicated thing. If you got girl parts, you are a girl. If you got man parts, you are a man. When I was born, the doctors told my mom, said, hey, it's a boy. She was like, it's a boy? Okay. His name is Vincent Edward Brown, a very masculine sounding name. When my brother was born a year and a half later, once again as a boy, my dad said, it's a boy, so I'm going to call him Timothy Wayne Brown. A little more than 10 years later, we adopted a girl. Her name was Catherine Brown. My parents wanted a girl, so they adopted a girl. They didn't ask and say, are you a boy or a girl? Are you pansexual or transsexual? What are you? Because we knew the differences between the sexes. There's only two sexes: man, male, and female. Man, woman. But we let a bunch of fruit bats get into positions where they can influence people's thinking. We let them take over the schools. We let them take over politics. We allowed charisma determine who is the best person for this position instead of using intellect, using logic. And when you point this out, they want to silence you. They want you to, stand down. We don't want to hear all that right now. And then they say you're hating. Ain't no one hating. Oh, you just jealous. No, ain't no one jealous. I don't want their position. But that I never would have thought. Just 15 years ago, maybe. I never would have thought we'd be living in a world where men can go into girls' bathrooms because they think they're a girl. This world has turned wackerdoodle. Too many fruit bats have been let out of the cave. That's why this shark is in the water. Deal with them fruit bats. Folks, if you're going to interact in public or anything, and I'm not saying you have to be a genius or anything like that, but there are just certain things, that are just fundamental. Certain things you should know. Things you should have known when you were a toddler. But we let someone come in because they hold a position or because they got a degree or something like that, and we give them our ear because they got a degree. How you know they didn't cheat to get that degree? I mean, I'm just saying they could have cheated. You never know. Shoot, your instructor in college could be wackerdoodle, or your teacher could be a dimble-wacky, and they're teaching this garbage to you, and then the parents don't do anything. The parents don't come in and say, hey, don't you be teaching my child that. You're supposed to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. But what we do, what do a lot of parents do? Oh, I'm caught up in my career. I can't teach you. That's the teacher's job. But education begins at home. Education begins at home. And if you're not willing to do your job at home, the teacher can feed your child anything. And you'll sit there and praise your child as long as they keep passing their tests and doing their homework. Oh, you're doing your work? Okay, good. And you don't know that them doing their homework, you don't know that those teachers are poisoning their minds. And then they graduate and then they go to these institutions of lower learning, which is basically what a college is. And you have these activist instructors teaching your kids. And you can't, and if you say a word about it, they might call the police on you and have you removed from town hall meetings and things like that. No, this is my child. This is my child. This is not You didn't bear this child for 9 months and push this child out in pain and labor. You didn't supply the diapers and the feed to help this child grow and develop over the years. You weren't there when, with the back talk and telling them to clean their room or anything like that. You weren't there for that. You were just there to teach them. But you act like that you are bigger, that you're supposed to be the bigger influence in a child's life than even their parents, even though you didn't birth that child. And see, that right there lets me know that the government sees your child as a commodity of the state, whether you like it or not. That's why certain factors within our government, they see parents as a threat, because a parent is one of the biggest obstacles to their agenda. But see, now it's getting to the point, it's getting to the point where parents just don't want to do their job anymore. Shoot, I got my career. I got this. I ain't got no time to teach my child. But what about on the weekends? You got time. You got time. But you just don't want to deal with it all because, it's too much work. You got the time. It's time for parents to go back being parents. And teachers, you need to sit in your place. And no, I do not believe in this it takes a village mentality. No, it takes two dedicated parents. And the parents choose who's going to influence their child's life. So that's not the village raising them, because you might have one point of view, but the village might have a different point of view. And so you're going to clash with that village as long as that is. But if you say, okay, I'm the parent, this is my child, I don't care what your point of view is, I don't want you teaching that garbage to my child. That's what a good parent is. And you got a bunch of parents who are taking their kids out of public schools, government schools, and they choose to homeschool them or put them in a private institution where they believe their child can excel. And they should have that choice. Nobody should be bucking against a parent who wants to have the best education for their child. No one should be bucking against that. But see, we're living in a time where our government is getting more and more centralized. Certain socialist aspects have already taken over our government, and it's getting more and more centralized. And it's getting more and more difficult for parents to be parents. But hey, we don't care. That's the teacher's job. The teacher's supposed to teach my child. I don't want to teach them timetables. One of the reasons why I was one of the first kids to learn his timetables? Because my parents drilled it in my head when I don't cotton to the method that they used. But still, that's beside the point. I was one of the first 3 kids to learn his timetables. And I learned them good. We had to learn from 0 to 12. I didn't like that. I did not like memorizing the timetables, and I didn't like math, period. But my parents were like, you're going to learn these timetables or you die. Okay, I don't want to die. Guess I'll learn them timetables. Yeah, it was like pulling teeth to get me to learn them timetables. But when it was over, I was one of the first 3 kids in my class to learn his timetables. Matter of fact, among those first 3 kids, it was 3 kids that learned their timetables And I was one of those 3 kids that learned them. I remember our teacher gave us pencils as an award, and on the pencil it said multiplication tables memorized. It was a blue pencil. I remember that. It starts at home. But parents don't they don't want to, and see, here's part of the problem though. A lot of these parents, they haven't grown up themselves. A lot of them, they didn't learn their timetables when they were in school. They just floated on through school, and the schools just let them pass. Oh, we'll grade on the curve. They just let them pass on. And now the parents, they grow up, they don't know how to read, they don't know how to do math. And then their child comes home, hey, mom, dad, hey, I got some homework. Can you help me? They can't help them. They're like, well, shoot, I got to work. I got a career. I ain't got no time for this. That's a teacher's job. I'm no teacher. I ain't no teacher. And we wonder why our kids fall behind. And the powers that be, oh, they love it. The powers they love it. Matter of fact, they're like, you know what? Hey, parents, just sit aside. We'll teach your kids. We'll teach your kids. Just sit down. We got this. We know how to teach our kids. We're heroes. We're teachers. But it's only, and see, here's the thing. This is the reason why there's so much turmoil in the classrooms today, because we want to hand it off to the teachers, and we expect the teachers to be miracle workers, and the kids are not learning anything at home. When they come home, they throw their backpacks down and the books down. They get them a snack and they sit there and watch TV or play video games or tap on their phones all day. Then we let them stay up late till 10 or 11 o'clock. And then the next day, the child is not ready to go to school. They go to school, and what do? They goof off. And then when the teacher wants to discipline them, the parents want to swoop in and, that's my child. That's my child. I don't want you putting your hands on my child. I don't want you yelling at my child. That's my child. My child's a good child. No, your child is a little devil. Your child is a devil manifested in the flesh. And until you do something with your child, I am not your child disciplinarian. And when I do discipline your child, I shouldn't hear anything from you. Now, when you take your child home, you need to exorcise that devil out of your child. Because I don't want to have to deal with that devil every day. And you got children, they come in and they just want to cut up and just take over the classroom. And then we wonder why we have a shortage of teachers. Why do we have a shortage of teachers? Because you're not respecting them. You're not letting the teachers teach. They're teachers. They're not babysitters. But the ultimate teacher of your children should be the parents. And why parents don't want to do their job, they just let the kids do whatever, No structure in the household. I told you all when I was on Blog Talk Radio, I was talking about my wife works at a daycare, and during the time of the pandemic, kids had to learn at home and whatever and stuff like that. But my wife worked at this daycare, and they would allow older age kids to come there, and they had to monitor them on the computer because they had to learn their teaching on the computer, or they had to learn their lessons on a computer. Teacher come on, and the teacher would teach through the computer. And you had a couple of kids, they would come in. First of all, their computers wouldn't even be charged. And not only that, they didn't even know the password to their computer. And I'm sitting there like, that's a home problem. Because if your child is coming here and they're supposed to get on a computer so the teacher can teach them from the computer, the online learning, when they come home, the first thing they should do is hook their computers up to an outlet or whatever, so their computers can be charged in the morning. But they don't do that. I mean, something that simple. The parents are not even monitoring that. And then on top of that, the kids didn't even know their password. My wife was telling me, said, honey, these kids don't even know their password. Every day, I got to ask them the password. And when I ask them what their password is, oh, no. And then not only that, the director of the daycare would get on the teachers if the children didn't have a charging cable for their computers. That's not our responsibility. That ain't their responsibility. That's the responsibility of the parents. But see, this is the reason why, I don't know how I got off on this, but this is the reason why our kids act the way they do. Because not only are the parents not being parents at home, but when they come to the school administrators let the parents be bad parents. They don't even confront the parents and say, look, let me tell you something about your little Johnny. First of all, your little Johnny is a devil. What do you mean my little Johnny is a devil? Well, at recess, we saw the little pointed tail come out and we saw the horns come on his head. But anyway, your child is a devil. Your child is a handful. We need your help. This is your child. Well, you're the teacher. You do. No, nah. You're not getting off like that. This is your child. Now, your child comes in here acting like a devil. We're gonna do our best to get that devil out of them. And if you got a problem with that, then you need to take your child somewhere else. That's why they have parent teachers meetings. But you know what? A lot of people, especially the black parents, and especially the black parents, they are not going to show up to the parent teachers meetings because they feel like, hey, the teacher's going to do whatever anyway, so I don't need to be there. And at these parent teacher meetings, they need to sit down and say, parents, we need to let you know something. These are your children. These are not our children. When these children, at the end of the day, when we dismiss school, they go home with you. They don't go home with us. These are your children. We need help on your end because we are not your child's babysitter. But we don't do that. You know why? We tie the teachers' hands, and we wonder why. There's a shortage of teachers. That's why I won't get into teaching. People keep telling me, Vincent, you're a good teacher. You're a good teacher. You'll be a great teacher. Yeah, I probably could be, but I've been there, done that. I said, nope. I was even thinking about going back to school and learning teaching and everything, but them 2 years that I was a teacher's assistant, I said, no, nope. And, you got people in the church saying, well, Vincent, that's your talent. God gave you that and everything. No. Yeah, God gave, I thank God for my ability to teach. But as long as you got devil parents bringing their little devilish kids to school and not doing anything about it, no, I am not teaching your kid. I stopped all that teaching mess back in 2011 because I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be a teacher. I'm gonna help mold minds and everything. Shoot, you crazy. The lies you tell, man, I was in for a big surprise. And the school I was teaching at wasn't even a public school. It was a private school. I said, nope, this ain't happening. Nope. We're going to respect the parents more than the teachers. And then you get parents, because the kids are little devils. Of course, they're going to get most of the discipline. And why are you picking on my child? Ain't no one picking on your child. You think I don't like your child? You think I don't like the way this child looks. I'm going to pick on him. Nah, your child is a devil. If you would teach your child to respect adults, then we won't have to, quote unquote, pick on your child. Your child always starting some, excuse me, your child always starting some mess in the classroom and everything, always ending up in the principal's office. And then, why y'all picking on me? Ain't no one picking on your child. And then you got these stupid administrators. They'll sit there and you got to take it easy on little Johnny. Don't be so hard. No. Someone needs to bring the hammer down. I'm not talking about abusing them or going upside their head or anything, but we need to deal with this now. Because when that child gets older and you keep letting them slide, they're going to go out into a world and then, they're going to think, oh, yeah, I'm entitled. Can't no one touch me. And then when they get pulled over by a police officer, get in the police officer's face, and then the police officer has to deal with them. Oh, Black Lives Matter. The police brutality. We don't blame the child. And that's why I won't get into teaching. I get people, even now, people say, Vincent, you're a teacher. You're a teacher. As if that was my grand calling from God. Well, I got something for them. The Bible says, whatever you do in word or deed, do it all to the glory of God. And I can't do teaching to the glory of God. I might can be a good teacher, but the only way I can teach is if I have your attention. I can't teach you if I don't have your attention. And if I can't get your attention and then you don't learn something, and then your parents, well, why is he failing his test? Why this? Why that? Because you're not being a parent at home. My goodness, I do not know how in the world I got off onto this. I'm supposed to be talking about Ketanji Brown Jackson and how dumb as a bunch of rocks she is. And I'm over here talking, well, this might have something to do with it. Keep your kid from being another Ketanji Brown Jackson. And yeah, even these kids who are successful in the classroom, got to watch out for them too. They might be getting all the praise for, they're such a good student. But they're being taught a lot of garbage too. Oh, folks, I tell you, like I said, I do not know how I got off on this. I do not know, but someone probably needs to hear it. They probably need to hear it. Now, if I own the school and whatever, first thing I do, I be with the parents. Oh, you don't show it to the parent teachers meeting? Okay, I'm going to write a little note. Have someone take down notes of what we talked about, and I'm going to send it home to you. And I need you to read it, and I want it signed. Because we're not going to be babysitting your kids. But see, it's not going to. From what I can see, it's not going to get better. I think I think a lot of these situations are too far gone. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. Not unless people as a whole say, okay, we need to stop this. This is the same thing I'd be talking about these black communities. They're always wondering why the police are in their neighborhoods and everything. Well, it's because that's where the crime is. They're not there, ooh, black people, we got to watch them. Nah, it's because it's a lot of crime in black communities. Well, what about the white communities? Well, we don't hear about the crime. Ain't no crime up there. And when the crime does happen in a white community, we deal with it. But this is where the crime is. This is crime central. Like they say in like you hear some of the comedians say, if you're in a city and you're on Martin Luther King Jr., if you're on any road named after Martin Luther King Jr., you better run. That's going to be crime central. Well, except for here in Durham, we have a parkway named after Martin Luther King Jr., and I think this might be the only city. This might be the only city in the entire country to have a road named after Martin Luther King Jr. and it not be centered to the crime in the city. When I lived in D.C., one of the most crime-ridden areas, Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. Go to Atlanta, Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. What is about Martin Luther King that people want? We always want to name these roads after Martin Luther King. But folks in them areas, they always act like a bunch of animals. We're so proud. Oh, this is named after Martin Luther King. Need to change the name from Martin Luther King Avenue to Crime Central Avenue. Why are you doing that? Why you take down Martin Luther King? That's racist. Nah, we just wanted to be truthful here. Crime Avenue. Murder Boulevard. Drug Running Road. But yeah, here in Durham, when you hear of Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue or Parkway, no crime. Hardly any crime on that parkway. Hardly any. I very rarely hear of that. And I remember this one guy, he was talking about, there was some crime going on again near Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway. And he was talking about something that was happening a mile away. A mile is a long distance. It's a longer distance than you may think. But just because it was a mile away doesn't mean it was happening on Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway. Because here in Durham, it's one of the most peaceful roads in Durham. I think the worst thing about it might be a car accident or something. That's it. But you don't hear about crime. They got a lot of new apartments and everything, well-to-do apartments and whatever up here. But things are not going to change until people in those communities do the change. The police can only do so much. And the way we treat the police officers should be criminal. Yo, why y'all always over policing? Over policing? Well, I tell you what, you stop over criming and we'll stop over policing. You won't have to worry about that. It has nothing to do with racism. It has to do with crime. Go to any city. Where do you see most of the drugs being pushed? Yeah, I'm aware that it goes on in the rich areas too. I'm aware of that. But where do you see it done more openly than anywhere else? In the black communities. The crime, the gang banging, the murders. But we want to complain about over policing in our neighborhoods. But we don't want to do anything about our neighborhoods. That's somebody else's job. That's somebody else's job. We can't do that here. Well, what do the white folks do? Why are their neighborhoods so peaceful? Very rarely are you gonna come into a white community anywhere and there be influx of crime. Very, very rarely. But those black neighborhoods, gunshots every day. I told you all a few weeks ago, a couple of black kids busted out the window in my SUV. 11, 13-year-old kids had a glass breaking device with them. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. Cold as all get up. What's an 11 and a 13-year-old kid doing walking the streets around 10 o'clock at night? An 11 and a 13-year-old. And the parents don't do anything. They let the kids off. Shoot, I'd shudder to think what my parents would have done if I was 11, 13 years old and I'm walking on the street acting wild at about 10 o'clock at night, busting windows. They'd be like, yeah, you want to bust windows? We're going to bust your head. No, I'm not instituting that parents should bust their kids' heads or anything like that. But my parents, they probably would have. That's why I try my best to stave off their wrath. But sometimes the harder you try, nothing satisfies them. That's another thing too about parents. Parents, don't be so hard on your kids. You don't go upside their head because their collar is crooked or that shoestring is untied or anything like that. That's the other side of the spectrum. Some parents are just so hard on their kids for everything. Well, I just want the best one. Well, you don't have to be so hard like that. Yeah, nothing wrong with disciplining your kids, but you don't need to bring the hammer down on them like that. So what? He's sloppy. Just fix him up. Just encourage him. But going upside their head is not going to help them. But anyway, let me go on to I wanted to go on to another subject before today's show. Uh, I got about 22 minutes. It was something else I wanted to share. See if I still got it up here. Okay. Now, let me share something with you guys out there. As you all may know, I am a born again Christian. I'm a born again Christian. I've been so since October of 1986. Be 40 years ago. And had my ups and downs and whatever. I remember that one thing that made my day today was I was here at the mall in Durham, South Point Mall, and two teenage boys came up to me. They wanted to share Jesus with me. And I shared with them that I'm already a Christian, and it made my day because one of the kids was 17 years old, the other was 19. And I said, you know what? There's hope for our kids today. Because Generation Alpha, I think it is Generation Alpha and Generation Z, and millennials, and they're acting pure fools out here today. And I'm not going to let Generation X get by with it, because I think Generation X was, probably one of the first generations to start off the mess we see here. But I think it was started with the baby boomers. But the kids, they prayed for me. It made my day. I'm walking out that mall, with a lighter step and everything. I was like, man, this is encouraging. They really encourage. One was a black kid. I don't know if he was Somalian or Ethiopian or Indian. He was dark skinned, and the other kid was white. And they just came, sat down, and I was like, "Oh man, this is all right." And I shared some things with them, how I became a born again Christian, and I gave them some advice on some things, because these are young kids, and I just want to give them a little piece of advice, and they were very gracious for it. And growing up as a born again, well, I didn't grow up as a Christian. I didn't become a Christian until I was 18 years old. I thought I was, because I was Roman Catholic, got confirmed in the Catholic Church. But when you match the Catholic doctrine against the Word of God, you'll find out the Catholic doctrine it does not adhere to the Word of God. And so I became a born again Christian and had my ups and downs. The church the church where I got my teaching at and everything, I was there for like 25, 26 years, and I had to leave because I realized that a lot of what they had been teaching me for 20 something years was false doctrine. And I didn't drop Christianity because my pastors, or, the people who had taught me, I didn't see them as a reflection of God. I was like, they taught me the wrong thing, so I that's why I left the church. But a lot of people, when they learn that their pastors or their ministers taught them the wrong doctrine, they'll say, "Oh, ain't nothing to this Christian stuff." That wasn't me, because I had enough root in me to realize that, I'm a person who likes to read the Bible. I read the Bible, and I was like, well, I can't blame this on God. I blame this on the preacher. And that's why I left my church. And one of the things that would get me about this Christian walk would be certain Christian artists. Back in the 80s, everybody was trying to, be cool, and, because they wanted to win the young people and everything. That's when gospel rap became popular, and gospel rock was getting its feet wet and everything. And people were like, well, this is what the kids like, so this is what's going to lead them to Christ. Now, it might lead them to your church because they want to hear that music, but it's not going to lead them to Christ. And nobody had to use a formula to get me. They just preached the word, and I realized the word, I realized the saving grace in the word, and that's why I converted to Christianity. And I know a lot of people, they say things about Christianity and, oh, that's the white man's religion, and, Christianity, they got their name from pagans and all that, and I've heard it all for the past 40 years. But Christian artists, this is a problem I have with Christian artists. A lot of them, they think because they can sing real good and they can carry a tune and whatever, that means they are singing for God. A lot of people that I grew up listening to, like Shirley Caesar and CeCe Winans, Yolanda Adams. Yolanda Adams gone cuckoo. And a lot of these people get a lot of praise from folks because they can carry a tune. But when you dig into their philosophy, or what they're supposed to be singing about, you'll find out is something totally different. They'll sing one thing, but they'll live another. And one of the artists that is very well known for this is an artist named Amy Grant. And I've been hearing about her dallyings for nearly the past 40 years. This woman, she calls herself a gospel artist. I don't know if she still does that today, but back in the day, she was real popular among Christian circles. But she would sing one thing, but she would live another, you know. She came out with a song called Baby Baby, which I think is a pretty good tune, but you're supposed to be a gospel artist. And a lot of Amy Grant's songs have a lot of compromise in them and everything, because these people, they get up here, they say, oh, you know, we want to bring the young kids in, and we can't use words like Jesus and God in our songs because that'll scare them away. But I believe it's a scripture in the book of Mark. I think it's Mark 9:44, if I'm correct. It says, no one can come unto the Father unless he draws him. God doesn't need our help with anything. You know, he doesn't need our help. I think BB and CC Winans back in the day, they said they didn't like to include Jesus in their songs because those were buzzwords that might scare off the young people. They're all about the young people, the young people. Now, back in that day, I was a young person, but I didn't need BB and CC Winans or Amy Grant or any of the rest of them to change the tune to suit me. The word had already done that, and God doesn't need our help. But anyway, Amy Grant is still at it. You know, I don't know how old Amy Grant is. How old is Amy Grant? She's got to be in her 60s. Okay, she's 8 years older than I am. So that means she's 65. You know, she's about on the other side of, on the other side of the hill to go to 70. But I remember in 1999, she divorced her husband. I think it was, what was his name? Chapman. She divorced her husband, and not long after that, she was seen with a country singer named Vince Gill. And they got married. I don't know if they're still married today. But, Amy Grant, there was a case where Amy Grant and a friend of hers were at the beach. They were at the beach, I think in Africa. And someone came and surprised them. And lo and behold, they were sunbathing topless. Amy Grant, Christian singer. But anyway, I want to read this article. And let me share this in the chat so you can read it yourself. And there we go. It's in the chat. And, well, I might put it in the description of the show too when I end it today. But anyway, let me get back to the article. I just had it. Okay, here we go. And this is in the Western Journal, and this is dated today, January 17, 2026, 7:30 this morning. Christian, they should put Christian in quotation marks. Christian contemporary singer, excuse me, Amy Grant released a new single which attempts to draw a connection between Woodstock and the events of January 6, 2021. Already got a bad start. The song is entitled The 6th of January, Yasgur's Farm, a reference to the farm owned by Max Yasgur, which hosted the Woodstock Music and Art Fair in 1969. Grant was born in November 1960, meaning she was only 8 years old when Woodstock occurred in August 1969. The best-selling singer also invoked John Lennon's Imagine, which is one of the most ungodly songs ever written. Let me just say that. The music to it is okay, but the wording is ungodly. The best-selling singer also invoked John Lennon's Imagine. R&B singer Marvin Gaye, who was no friend to the church, he had his ways, and other left-wing cultural touch points while alluding to the U.S. Capitol incursion. The song indeed was released on January 6, 2026, 5 years to the day after the infamous protest. The chorus of the new release reads as follows, according to Genius. Hey, mister, where's the road to Yasgur's farm? He stares at me with pity and alarm. Says that crowd left here long ago. Scattered all to H and Harper's Ferry on the 6th of January. Grant said in an interview with USA Today that the song is meant to center on the theme of unrest. I think sitting with unrest is where we ask important questions. What can I do differently? It can be unrest about anything, Grant told the outlet. Now, one thing I've noticed about Amy Grant, I'm going to break it right there. One thing I've noticed about Amy Grant, a lot of times when she gives advice or whatever, she never says anything about Jesus. I remember something she said about a statement she made about 30 years ago. She said, yeah, God can't solve all our problems. Like, what? The creator of the heavens and the earth cannot solve all our problems. See, I have a problem right there. Right there, that would put a red flag on me getting any of her music if I call myself a Christian. And she's supposed to be a Christian. And I'm buying her music because I think it's Christian. I'd be like, nah. But let me continue. It says, I can't help but see life through the lens of someone born in 1960. And when I see my children and their children, everything is vying for everyone's attention. She continued. Still not talking about anything about God or anything. Unrest is the invitation to say, what do I have control over? And what choices can I make in the world we live in? We have so much power and influence in our own lives. Grant has historically been connected to the Christian music genre, but in more recent years, she has been increasingly vocal in her affirmation of homosexuality and transgenderism. There's another red flag. But these problems, this is something that Amy has been known for at least the past 30 or 40 years. Amy Grant, who is pro-LGBTQ and hosted a lesbian wedding at her home, Oh my gosh. Is brooding over January 6th, longing for the days of godless Woodstock and John Lennon's Imagine in the lyrics of her new song. The Christian Theology podcast, WWUTT, reacted on social media. This is who is considered the queen of contemporary Christian music, the account added. Folks, let me just, I'm going to stop right there just for now. You cannot be a Christian and support LGBTQ. This is something people need to let people like Amy Grant and gosh, I don't forgot the man's name. Dude in Atlanta. Jamal Bryant. People need to let people know this. You cannot support the LGBTQ agenda and call yourself a Christian. Hosted a lesbian wedding at her home. longing for the days of godless Woodstock, which Woodstock was godless, and John Lennon's Imagine in the lyrics of her new song. This is who is considered the queen of contemporary music, the account added. Other social media users lamented her progressive trajectory. In the 80s, she was my favorite Christian singer. I even bought her tapes without words to sing her songs in front of my church, another commenter said. Then shortly after she started singing secular music, then had an affair with Vince Gill, she's been irrelevant in the Christian community since. There were problems with her before she even started that affair. Anyone who believes that Woodstock or John Lennon's Imagine are things to celebrate has, as she's saying, truly lost their way, a third user remarked. Amy Grant is a prime example of someone following her own way, which sadly always leads to destruction. Only Jesus' way leads to life. And that's why, the most dangerous people out there are people who call themselves Christians, but they don't follow the word because they're not Christians. They're not followers of Jesus. You can't be a follower of Jesus and host a lesbian wedding at your home. You can't be a follower of Jesus and you support LGBTQ causes. You can't be a follower of Jesus and support abortion. But she's gotten more political than she has Christian. She thinks her politicism supersedes her Christianity, and she's going to be one of those who stands before God, says, "Here I am, Lord," and the Lord will be like, "Who are you? I don't know you." But Lord, I sang all these Christian songs and everything. So I don't know who you are. You see that place over there? Smells like sulfur, whatever. It's kind of hot. That's where you're going for eternity. But Lord, I did this for you. I did that. I did this. The book of Matthew, the 7th chapter, it talks about those who will say, "Lord, Lord, we did this for you. We did that." He'll say, I never knew you. And that's something you don't want to hear on Judgment Day. And if Amy Grant doesn't change her ways, I hope she's not reprobate, but she sounds like she is. She doesn't change her ways. Those are the words she's going to hear when she stands before God. But anyway, folks, that's all I'm going to say for today. The time went by real fast. And next week, I should have another show. Hopefully, God willing. You all just check into what I've been talking about. Don't just take my word for it. Do research and study. Don't just take anyone's word for what they say. Go and check it out for yourselves. And even myself, you might like the way I talk, you might like the way I teach, you might like the way I do anything, but don't just take my word for it. Check it out for yourself. But anyway, I'm going to leave it all right there. You all take care of yourselves, stay healthy, stay safe, enjoy your holiday. This is Vincent E. Brown. I'm signing off. And until the next time, I'll see you on the rebound.
You are listening to WVEB Truth Sharks Radio.